Hi there, welcome back. Hannah here. And as promised, I am going to show you how I do my varnishing. So this tub is one of those underbed storage tubs that I am using to do my varnishing in. I like using this for my smaller pieces because I can do the varnishing and then put the lid on it. I put the handles up so that it lifts the lid up just slightly so there's some airflow, but then I can put the lid on so that no dust gets in the varnish while it's drying. And there are lots of different things you can use to elevate your canvas when you're doing your painting or your varnishing. When I'm doing it in the tub like this, or even just on the table, it needs to be high enough so that I can run my fingers underneath and get rid of any drips. Because when the varnish dries and there's a lot there, you'll have a big sort of glob and it's like a drip that you'll have to try to, you know, kind of shave off or something. So I like to just run my finger under the edge to get rid of that. And so it needs to be high enough off of the bottom that I can do that. So anything that you can find around that's a little taller. My husband likes these tapioca cups, and so he saves these for me. And I mean, you could use little applesauce cups or, you know, anything like that that has a little bit of height, I find works really well. Okay, so these two are ready. They have been drying for over 3 weeks at this point. I got sidetracked doing other things and they've just been sitting and waiting for their varnish. So they're good and dry and cured and ready for their varnish. So in my last video, I showed how I mix my varnish, and this is what I just mixed in that last video. So I'm going to gently stir this. Don't want any air bubbles. This will keep. When I put the plastic over it and put it inside the little tub to save it for in between coats of varnish, or maybe it's going to sit there for a couple of days, it does just fine. Just remember to stir it gently. If it sits for a long time, the varnish is going to start to settle on the bottom, and you'll get kind of little globs that I have not been able to work back in. So you don't want to let this sit too long. When you mix a batch like this, be ready to use it. You know, don't let it sit for weeks, because then it won't be any good. Okay, that should be good. So for smaller paintings like this, I wouldn't pour on. I don't. The larger paintings I might pour some on and then brush, but for smaller paintings like this, it's just as easy to just dip my brush and go across. So I'm going to dip the end of my brush in, not the whole thing, just maybe a third of the way, and then just start brushing on the varnish. The bristles on this brush are really soft. I love this brush for varnishing. This is the flat brush by Plaid. Oh, there was a little bubble there. You don't want to go over too many times, and you want this nice and thin. And you don't want to go over too many times, because then it starts to make your varnish look cloudy. And then I just do the sides like this. You can use that little bit of runoff, it's usually plenty, or you can dip your brush again and just kind of run it along and then do your brushing. Now, one thing that I've discovered when you are varnishing paintings with a lot of metallic paints in them, I unfortunately discovered this the hard way. It might be a good idea to do a light coat of a spray varnish before you do the liquid varnish, because I had two small ones like this, and I had a silver one and then a black one. And I did the silver one first and immediately went to the black one, and I had silver streaks through the black one. So it picked up a little bit of that paint. So you want to be really careful with those metallics. These should be fine though. If you notice that any, if you're done going over your painting, if you notice any little puddles, you can just very lightly kind of swipe across to try to get those like that right there. You don't want to do too much because this is a very thin coat and it will start drying, and then you're going to have streaks if you mess with it too much. Okay, almost done here. So again, this is just a very light coat. Okay, so when I'm done here in a second, you want to make sure you wash your brush immediately or as soon as possible. So I'm going to get my varnish covered back up here. And I'm going to set my brush aside for just a second, but not too long. You need to get that rinsed out immediately. And I'm again going to run my fingers underneath because I don't want those drips drying as drips. Boy, that one's wanting to move around a lot. I usually do it a couple of times just to make sure. See, got a little bit more there. I mean, those drips are not a huge deal unless they're really close to the edge of the painting, and then trying to get them off is a little precarious. It's a tricky job. And I need to get this finished so I can get my brush washed out. So I'm going to wait 3 hours. That's the recommended time. And when I do my next coat, I'm going to brush in the opposite direction. So we're filling in those other grooves, and then you won't see any brush lines at all. And that's how I do my varnishing. So now I'm going to get my lid on here. And again, I put the handles up so it raises the lid just a little to get a little bit of airflow